Joining us here on the program is the first man I called when I knew we were coming to Kansas City, so it's only fitting that he is here to wrap up our first day. The great Eric Stonestreet.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, everyone. No, it's awesome. I can't believe you're here.
I know. I can't believe I'm here, too. And in this spot, the beautiful, the Harlow here, as soon as I called you up, and I'm like, hey, well, this is the place that we're looking at, and you're like, that's great.
It's fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my friend back there, he had his wedding reception here, and now he's divorced.
Well, it's not the fault of the place.
No, probably not. I'm sure you'll be on the air for many years, Rich.
I mean, how long were they married?
I don't know.
Got
I'll
it.
get into that later.
All right.
It's so awesome that you're here. And
Yeah,
listen,
thanks, brother.
Look, I've teased you. I've talked about it on Twitter. I've texted you.
Yes, sir.
You cannot come to Kansas City without having a special surprise.
Okay.
Something that we value, we love as Kansas Cityans. And you know, Rich, we've been friends for how many years now? A long time.
Long time, at least 15 years.
Yeah. And I'm not going to bring you the second best. I'm not going to bring you the third best. I'm going to bring you the best of the best.
Okay.
So having said that,
Yes.
Please summon my surprise.
Oh, okay. We're getting right to it.
Whoa.
What do we got? Oh, my God. It's not meat. It's Veach.
Hey. What?
I was like, wait a second.
Wow.
Whoa.
Fantastic.
How about that?
How about this? Because I texted this man to say, come on the show.
Oh, we have a story.
Okay, please pull that right in front of you right there. Hold on a minute. Good to see you. Hold on. Great audience about to come back. We got a lot of moving parts. Now that's a surprise. Right? The best of the best that Kansas Cityans
really
love.
surprise.
We're back on the Rich Eisen Show radio network. I'm sitting at the Rich Eisen Show desk, furnished by Grainger with supplies and solutions for every industry. Grainger has the right product for you. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. Eric Stonestreet is here. You said you brought the best of Kansas City, right? We thought it was barbecue, but instead it's the general manager of the Kansas City.
That was,
Veach.
it was a gracious intro, but what happened was he called me.
Yes.
And he said, look, I got to bring a guest out to Rich Eisen. And Henry Winkler bailed on me. He was like, can you do me a solid and just run up? And I was like, for you, man, anything. So, no, it was funny because he hit me up about coming on, and then I think an hour later.
I texted you?
You texted me about coming on.
Yeah.
So I showed Eric the screenshot. He's like, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to decline Rich's invite for a show and accept your invite for a show. Yeah, it worked out.
It is better. It's better. Thank you. That's pretty cool, man.
That's awesome. Well, I just said, man, you got to come out. Like, I figured you'd reach out to him, but I thought it would be fun if he was the surprise for the show.
Dude.
And I heard you already had Clark on?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I'm sure that went well. So
It did go well.
Yeah.
I still have a job.
Yeah.
At NFL Network. I haven't gotten a text or anything like that, but great to see you guys.
What do you want to talk about? Football?
You threw him a curveball.
He's like, I don't have my questions
Well,
prepared.
so many,
the general manager of the
so many
Kansas City
questions, he
Chiefs.
doesn't know which one to ask.
It's all good.
Yeah.
When did you guys first meet? Let's start with that. Because I know you guys are tight. I know that.
Well,
obviously.
Here's the deal. Mitch Schwartz, member of the tribe, as you know, one of your favorite stories ever. He was like, dude, I feel like you and Veach are going to be friends. This was years ago. And I said, well, I've never met him.
Yeah.
And I have a specific memory, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but of when you were hired. It was during Big Slick. You very well could have been there.
Yeah.
We were loading into the vans at the hotel, and it came off that, Doris had been fired or let go and hired Brett Veach. And I'm like, Brett Veach? Who is Brett Veach? Like Googling. And I was like, all right, well, this is a day that I'll remember forever. And so Schwartz had said that, and then we bonded and clicked over his daughter being a fan of the toy box. I was at the Chiefs game, and he was like, hey, will you meet my daughter real quick? And then we became friends.
The cool thing about Eric is when you meet people that are fans of the Chief, I mean, it's like one of those things where you can differentiate between a fan and a real fan.
Yes.
And so, like, quickly after we got to know each other, I mean, he was sending me texts asking about practice squad players. And some guys I didn't even know about. I'm like, this guy,
well, how soon upon meeting you did he show you the picture of him as a fan went back in the day
with
on
the
his
picture
phone?
in the end zone?
Yeah, the end zone.
Oh, that's like the first day. That's like the first day. That's his intro to every Chiefs fan.
Because it shows that he's...
No, it's real. It's
it
not
shows that you're legit. You're legit.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we've had this run, and I'll tell you the other Brett Veach story that for me personally and Lindsay personally and for you tomorrow night personally.
Yes, sir.
Literally, this man said to me, going on 4 years ago, what's your seat situation at Arrowhead? And I said, I don't have seats. Like the Hunts are gracious enough to offer me tickets every once in a while. You're going to want to get seats for the next 10 years. So Lindsay and I called and we're like, literal quote, you're going to want seats for the next 10 years.
Why would you? Why did you say that?
That's fulfilling your general manager obligation. So it's
well, you were generally
selling tickets. And,
you're generally managing Eric Stonestreet.
Yeah,
That's what you're doing right there.
He said you're not going to want to miss a game with Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to want to miss a game. And so that year we got a suite. I flew back it was the last year of Modern Family. I flew back for every game on Sunday. I didn't miss a game that season in Arrowhead. We went on, of course, to win the Super Bowl that year. And I thank him all the time for spending all that money of mine. Getting a suite. But yeah, he called his shot.
Dude, you saw it, right? So again, because I asked Clark Hunt, when was the first time you met Patrick Mahomes? And he said there was some sort of a Super Bowl party or something like that. And Lee Steinberg kind of put the two of them together because he had already, had heard Mahomes was on the Chiefs' radar screen, or the Chiefs already had him on the radar screen. And he basically said it was you.
Yeah.
He said it was you who saw Mahomes, and you had worked on Mahomes for 18 months. So what did you see out of him back in the day?
I got coached up right by the great Andy Reid, and it's just one of those things. I think, when you sit there and you evaluate tape all day, every day for a career, the good ones are going to stand out, and then the great ones are just going to take your breath away, so to speak. So, when you start watching his tape, and I think I've told the story a few times, I think I was actually starting off watching an offensive lineman for Texas Tech, and Pat wasn't even, a name that was declaring for the draft, and you start watching this game, and you're like, oh, that's a pretty cool throw. And then you get on to say, that's really interesting, and then all of a sudden you're not watching the lineman, you're just watching the quarterback, and then, one game turns into 2 games, turns into a season, and then it was almost like one of those things that you think, looking back on it, that it was supposed to happen, because it was like during that time when Coach Reid walked by the office, and I don't think there was anybody in that day, and he just kind of said, like, what are you doing? And I jokingly said at the time, I'm just watching the next quarterback. And it just so happened, to work out that we ended up drafting him, and here we are. And it's crazy to think all the success we've had, but it's been a blessing. And I think we all thought Pat would be good, but this is next level. And I think you realize that you're around greatness every day, obviously not just with the quarterback, but with the coach as well. So it's just been a perfect marriage of a coach quarterback that just clicks, and it clicked from day one.
And it's so rare to find a generational talent, but somebody who's also generationally enriching, not just to himself, but everyone around him, the halo effect of pretty much everyone around him. And you legitimately did say to Andy Reid, I'm watching our next quarterback. What did he say to you?
Well, listen, again, this is like in the spring, so he was like, yeah, I got you. And he kind of just peeked at the tape for a second and walked away, and then it followed up with a follow. You start sending those videos from your phone, and you're sending it to him. And so I started sending him a bunch of those, and it was funny because we got to like December, and I was on the road. I wasn't in the office, so I was on the road scouting.
Yeah.
And I sent him like maybe 4 to 6 clips of him in his most recent game. And mind you, coach is prepping for a game week.
Yes.
And Pat Mahomes, he doesn't even know, it's not on his radar. And he shot me a text back, like, dude, cut it out. Like, we'll talk about this after the season, And
no kidding.
But I just think it was a slow build up, and he got a little annoyed. And then after the season, once coach started to digest the film, he fell in love with them. And then really, everyone did. And then we brought him into the facility, and coach is known to have like his quarterback academy type deal where he brings them in, and we bring draft prospects in, and they spend 2-3 hours with the coach. And most of the time it's not bad because it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember when he came out of that quarterback meeting in his pre-draft interview, coach was like, this kid nailed this thing. And I think it's still one of the things that I think they still get enamored by the highlight throws and the arm strength and the athleticism. And I think people think he's smart, but he is on that level of, the Mannings and the Bradys, like his IQ. And I think that's when you have both of those traits, it's super deadly, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for how smart he is.
Well, the deadliest part, too, in terms of the combination, is the red ass that I think the quarterback series showed to a group of fans that I don't think people were quite aware of. That sort of Jordan, Kobe, Brady, Tiger-esque, Curry-esque,
Mahomes-esque.
Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to include him now,
Yeah.
Eric. You really do. And when did you see that? When was that revealed to you?
Well, I mean, early on,
Kansas State versus Texas Tech.
That was to you, revealed to you.
Yeah, I remember the deep balls for there, and I had no idea he would be on the radar of the Chiefs, but I'm like, damn, this guy is freaking great. My dad talked about him in college, too.
Actually, the last game I went to see him play before he declared, I think they played at Iowa State, so I drove up to Ames to see him play.
In the snow.
In the snow. I mean, there might have been 14,000 people there. It was brutally cold, and both teams were not bowl eligible, and they got off to a horrific start, and I think Pat hurt her shoulder, and it might have been like 34-6 at halftime, and I'm thinking to myself, well, this kid's going to declare. We kind of know that now, and it's 34-6 at halftime. Both teams aren't going to bowl. He has his draft future ahead of him and his pro future ahead of him. So I started packing up my bags. I'm like, I'm leaving because there's no way he's going back. And he didn't play the whole second quarter.
Right.
He left with a shoulder injury. So I start packing up my bag, and as I'm walking down the stairs to leave, he's going back in the game. Again, it's a blowout. Hurt shoulder, draft coming up. I mean, there's zero need to play in that game. And sure enough, he goes out there and starts the third quarter, and you just feel like, this is a competitor at the end of the day.
That's a metric to somebody like yourself who's scouting.
Most players that would be prepping for the draft,
Yeah.
I mean, there's one aspect if your team's fighting to be bowl eligible or fighting for something, I mean, they'll gut it out. But to gut it out just for your teammates, and the only reason that he was gutting out just for his teammates, I mean, that's a special and unique trait that you don't see nowadays, and that's certainly something that kind of led you to believe everything that you had thought already. So he's just a special, and he's been like that since he's been here. I mean, he wants to win at everything, and whether it's golf in the off season or basketball in the locker room, I mean, he's just wired that way, and that's why I always wonder why people try to, poke the bear, because he has one of those unbelievable memories, and he never forgets anything, and he'll do it in his own way in regards to addressing situations, and he's the best at it.
So was it appropriate for us to say, or at least view his response to that rookie in Vegas with the Muppet when he said that'll get handled when it's handled?
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's a T-shirt here in Kansas City.
Is that a T-shirt?
I'm pretty sure it is.
We thought,
I said that
the second we heard the soundbite, we're like,
T-shirt.
It'll get handled when it gets handled.
it'll get handled when it can, and we're like, uh-oh. Like,
Yeah.
that's the way we viewed it. Is that appropriate to view it that way?
I mean, look, I don't know exactly what's, inside Pat's head, but that's how he deals with a lot of things. Like, he does it on his own terms, and he has a way of, just writing it down in the mental box up there, and he looks for reasons, to get motivated. But all great ones do. I mean, because when you achieve so much success and you've accomplished everything, you always wonder, like, what drives those people, and they look for reasons to get motivated, and that's why I said I question why people want to give him more ammunition than is already out there, because he's one of those guys that he really thrives off being challenged.
Rich Eisen Show here in Kansas City for 3 days for the NFL kickoff. And when you go to a town and your great friend is there, and you think that great friend wants to surprise you, you think it's with meat, but only the true great friends bring the general manager of the two-time defending Super Bowl champs and Brett Veach, Eric Stonestreet here on the Rich Eisen Show. God bless you, Eric. You're a giver. You're a friend.
Well, it comes from a couple things. First of all, I don't think Brett's a very humble guy. Like,
right.
You hear the tone of his voice. It's like, and I'm sorry, Brett, I'm going to talk about you for a second in front of you. He doesn't get enough credit. And like Andy Reid, when things go bad, it's his fault. And when things go good, it's the team's,
success.
Team success.
Right.
Brett's the exact same way. He's cut from the same cloth. And so I don't expect him to go out there and toot his own horn. I want to toot his own horn because I've had this crazy privilege of getting to know someone in the organization personally. And it's kind of the same way I felt like when I got to know Anze Kopitar. Like, I watched him as a fan, but then I became his friend, and then I started getting worried about him on the ice. It switched to being like, he just something happened to his neck. He just got it, or whatever. And it's the same with Veach on Twitter. I mean, I love Kansas City. I love the Chiefs. I love Chiefs fans for the most part. But we, like other fan bases, just go level 10 so often. And when I read Twitter and see these people going after Veach after 3 Super Bowls, it makes me angry. It's because what I've learned is there's always so much more to the story. It's like, why didn't we cut so-and-so? Why didn't we sign so-and-so? The money, the cap, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, as his friend, it angers me. It's like it's better when I have a healthy distance from it and can kind of be a blend of that. Be like, well, why didn't we cut so-and-so or sign so-and-so? But anyway, I wanted Brett to be here, and then when you reached out to him, I was like, oh, well, he was, Yeah. But anyway.
I appreciate it. No,
Yeah.
I thank you for that, and I appreciate it. Honestly, you can come anytime you want. You could lie to my face and say, I'm coming with Eric. I don't care.
No.
No, but I really appreciate it.
Real quick thing about Mahomes,
Yes, sir.
from my perspective, two things that I've seen from my own eyes.
Please.
And then one that I've just heard through other people. One thing I notice about Patrick is he's the type of guy in a large situation always sees everything around him. Like, I'm not going to be in a group of people and like step forward and be like, what's up, Patrick, or whatever. I'll just kind of stand in the back and, whatever. He always finds me, and he does that with everyone. He comes into a situation and knows exactly where he is, and he sees all. Much like Coach Reed. They say Coach Reed can tell you everything there is to know about the game plan and also what the #1 country song is on the radio right now. They can tell you what the most popular TV show is. Like, he's got this mind that just sees everything around him. Patrick's the same way. The other thing is that, I forgot my second thing. Hold on. I'm wearing his shoes right now.
That he's great.
Well, that he's great, yeah. That's it, that he sees everything around him. And then the thing I heard from the grapevine is that he loves watching one-on-ones. Like, he likes watching tape of his offensive linemen's one-on-ones, like at training camp. And I think that is such a cool, I don't know if other quarterbacks do that. I don't know if other players do that. But the idea that Patrick, when he's done, he's like, hey, bring up the one-on-ones. I want to see how the tackles and guards did today. That says so much right there. A, that he loves ball, but B, it's such a leadership move because the next day he can say, hey, great rep yesterday on so-and-so, or great rep yesterday on so-and-so. And then all of a sudden the tackle's accountable to Patrick Mahomes because, gee, many Christmas, Patrick was watching my one-on-ones yesterday. Like, incredible. Blows my mind.
And the aspect of the offense, Brett, this year, the conventional wisdom or the narrative in my business is that the way that the offense was performing last year and sometimes struggle to score in second halves and things of that nature, you just said, screw it, we're gonna get faster.
Yeah.
And that was a conscious decision. Is that true, to connect those dots from last year's offensive struggles on occasion to drafting Xavier Worthy and getting Hollywood Brown?
For sure. I think, there's a couple things. I think when you live in this era of cap constraints and managing players of this caliber, I think on one end, you do have to be able to reinvent yourself. And we have Pat Mahomes and we have Coach Reed, so obviously we're always going to be inclined to win offensively. But because of maybe what cap space you have available and where you're picking and what's available,
right?
You do have to be able to sometimes, again, re-identify yourself and figure out different ways to win. And I think early on when Pat was here, we were going up and down the field scoring, and we had some defensive struggles. And then we brought in Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark, and we kind of were different mentality type defense. And then, you have to do some things that are difficult, like trade a Tyreek Hill. Well, then you're picking, and the best players on the board are Karlaftis and McDuffie. Then all of a sudden you start to accumulate some of these great players on defense. And, last year we were able to win because of our defense. But I think you have to be flexible to sustain success. And I don't know if you can go out there and win for 10 years in a row always by outscoring people. I mean, you're going to have to just figure out different ways to win. But certainly if given the opportunity and having resources, and having the right names fall in the draft, I mean, you're always probably going to be thinking Mahomes first. And, I mean, last year was the year that it worked out. We were able to sign re-sign some guys on the defensive side, and then when we got to the draft, Worthy and Kingsley, our left tackle were our first 2 picks. Want to protect him and give him more weapons, and then we brought Hollywood in too. So we're going to add a ton of vertical speed and add more protection and just keep giving Pat things to work with. And I think again that's always our first priority, but sometimes you have to take what is out there and do the best with what you have.
Well, again, I knew him running for his life in the Super Bowl loss that you had to Tampa. You're like, okay, we're going to hit the offensive line. You clearly did that. We had Creed Humphrey on the show last Friday. I mean, what a stud. Just as an example, I want to put a pin in Worthy for a second. You also have to have the contract your quarterback, your generationally great quarterback, is under. So how often do you address that with Patrick, certainly in an offseason where we just saw a ton of mid-50s APY, Dak, the whole conversation with him. He's going to he might be the first quarterback whose contract starts with a 6. It's possible Purdy could be that guy, and you've got Mahomes and all the trophies in the case. How often do you revisit this contract with Patrick, Brett?
Well, as you know, we did just readdress it last year, and
Yes.
and those are one of those situations that, I mean, obviously we'll have ongoing dialogue, and we have a great relationship. I think, looking back on that deal, obviously we're blessed to have that type of relationship, but a deal like that only gets done obviously if the personnel and the coaching staff are all on board, obviously, which we are, but the owner has to be all on board with something that long, and obviously Clark was, but the player has to be all on board. And I think to get the player on board, he has to have a lot of trust in the coaching staff, in the personnel staff, and I think, we obviously respect that a lot, and we handle that relationship with great care because we know that he put his trust in us, and that's why the ongoing communication is something that we'll always have. And like I said, last year we were able to move money up and make him, the highest paid quarterback over that 4-year span.
In terms of cash-wise, like he's cash-rich.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what puts the money in the bank.
That's what's the most important
But the
aspect
APY is not, not top 10 or whatever. And so when these contracts come, do you call him and just to check a pulse check here where he's...
Yeah, the API will always include years that aren't guaranteed, though.
Right.
So, really, players just care about, what's real. And again, we have that communication. So over the next 4 years, there's no one making more, and that's real. And then as this goes on, we'll continue to have open dialogue with him. And, that's the way we'll handle that relationship. And, again, we're just fortunate that we're in that position.
Sure. And then let's unpin Worthy. The combine moment where I'm in the booth with Daniel Jeremiah. I mean, these guys know, I've been doing combines now for 20 years. Never thought fans in the stands would happen, and never thought that there would be a moment where a player like Worthy would show up, an athlete, a competitor, would show up and do what he did. And in the same way that you're like saying Mahomes, you were surprised to see him come back in a game where he's got nothing, if you will, to play for when he's got his future ahead of himself. And he did. Worthy coming close to breaking the 40 in his first run. I thought he wouldn't run again. I was the only one. Everybody else was like, he's going to run. He's a competitor, whatever. I don't know if it's because of fans in the stands or he just wanted to break it. But him going out and running again and breaking it and the fans going nuts, truly one of my favorite. I'm like getting goosebumps even thinking about it. My greatest moments as a broadcaster in the 22 seasons I've done with NFL Network. Were you in the building?
Yeah, that was special. It's one of those things, when you go to Indianapolis, obviously your scouting staff is there and your coaching staff is there. And depending on where they are when particular position groups are running, sometimes they're scattered throughout the building. So every team probably has similar discussions in that when you get to the combine, you're telling coaches, this guy is around top 10 pick, this guy 2 to 3, this guy 3 to 4. And I remember talking to our coaching staff about Worthy, and they had done some tape work because we bring the guys in for the formal interviews, and a lot of times we have the film, the college film on the board. So they have done some film work, and obviously when you watch some of his film, his collegiate film, you get excited. And we had a great interview with him. And I remember when he left the interview, the coaches were like, what are we thinking? Like, is this guy going to be around? And I was like, yeah, it's going to be close. I think he kind of is going to be in that 25 to 35. And some of the teams will be scared off by the weight. And listen, you're always going to have O linemen and D linemen and quarterbacks go. So to account for all those guys, you're going to have some maybe the bigger receivers go. I said it's going to be close, and then he ran that 4.21, and I remember texting Coach Reed, Nags, Coach Blymeyer. Well, take him off the board. He won't be there at and I don't think he would have been
if it weren't for 6 of the first 12 quarterbacks going. Maybe?
Well, yeah, but again, we moved up to get him.
Got it.
So I'm pretty sure that. In fact, I know this because I talked to some GMs over training camp. Kind of let me know that they were trying to get up to get Worthy too. So wouldn't have had him at 32. I mean, would he have gone at 31 or 30? I don't know, but I'm pretty confident he would have been at 32. But after that 4.21, I mean, those guys typically, guys that are late one, usually go mid ones after a time like that. And but again, listen, there were a lot of great players that were taken, and a lot of these young guys. I don't know what your take is on the preseason, but it's rare to see all these first-round quarterbacks all look really good in the preseason. Usually, one looks good and a couple struggle, and I mean, it's exciting time for the league, obviously, with so much talent and so much parity. But I mean, the young quarterbacks here are truly special, and got a couple now in our division. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And in terms of that, before we take a break, and Eric Stonestreet here with Brett Veach, you just mentioned the young quarterbacks. Ryan Poles, who left Kansas City to go to Chicago. He was in the scouting department while Mahomes was doing his thing, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine you and he were in the same department pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And everybody is thinking Caleb is the next Mahomes.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a fair comparison?
Well, I think he has a lot of traits, and I didn't, unlike Ryan, you got to really be around the guy.
Sure.
But physically, I mean, sure. I mean,
just watching tape.
Just watching tape, yeah. I mean, he's got ad-lib ability. He's got a great arm. He's got great instincts. And, Ryan's done a really good job of giving him some offensive weapons to work with. And, I mean, I think those Chicago Bear fans should be really excited. And I think they have a deep roster, too. So it should be a lot of fun. That division is going to be – I mean, all these divisions are great. But, I mean, that's, with the way Detroit played last year and now Chicago getting in the mix, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I know it's not your table, but obviously you're a guy who scouted Mahomes, and Ryan was around too, and it's amazing how he's got a guy that everybody's talking about is the next Mahomes with all these plays and his playmaking ability. All right, let's take a break here and finish up this show with Eric Stonestreet, kind enough to bring Brett Veach here. If you weren't bringing barbecue, the general manager's next greatest thing.
100%.
Fantastic. Eric Stonestreet here, and Eric, you ran the great Okie Doke. You're like, I'm bringing a surprise. We all thought it was going to be barbecue, correct?
Kind of.
No doubt. It's offensive.
No.
It's weightist.
Weightist. No, we just thought it was going to be, especially since I agreed because you took the NFL Network crew for the draft. You took us all out.
And that's why we
you took us. So we thought that was going to be it, to the point where we're like, hey, I don't know if we're going to have. We were talking about maybe even pushing dinner back a little bit.
Yeah, overeating.
And instead,
today.
you brought us Brett Veach, the general manager of the Kansas City
Which is
Chiefs.
probably better than
I got to tell you, though,
Less filling.
I know Brett, how he works, and I got to ask at training camp some of his staff, what makes Brett great, and they had all these, interesting things to say about him. But one of the things, and I can attest to, is Brett is a big picture and small picture guy. He's in the minutia, but in the best way possible. And he again, like Coach Reed and Patrick, he's got a breath of the room. He's got a breath of everything that's going on. And after we had, doing this, said, well, tomorrow. Last night, I'm getting texts okay, so who's going to walk me out? How am I going to know where to go? Is there going to be an audience there? He wanted to know everything about it, and I'm just like, that's my GM right there. He's not walking into something without preparation. He's taking all of this into consideration, so he is the best at the moment that he needs to be the best he can be. I love that.
Fantastic. And I appreciate you taking the time here the day before kickoff. You have, I'm told, a great Ed O'Neill story,
God.
which, by the way, that's one of our favorite subject matters.
Yeah, I'm doing everything I can to get Ed O'Neill to a Chiefs game this year. We have one tentatively penciled in.
Which one?
Well, I can't remember which one it is. It's in November, maybe the noon game in November. But, he's like, Eric, it's hard to fly, I'm Ed O'Neill, right? But, we got to find somebody to fly Ed private. But So on the show,
Yeah.
Jesse and Ty and Sophia and Julie, they always gave Ed and I trouble because, especially on a Monday, you'd walk into the trailer, and if Ed and I were in there together, we would be middle of what we had to eat over the weekend conversation. It was always people walking in and Ed being like, and then I put cheese on them, and then you close the lid and you let it melt. Just let it melt for a little bit. Always talking about food.
Yes.
Always talking about food, to the point where Jesse and Ty and everybody kind of made fun of us. Ed and I have only seen each other twice since Modern Family Wrapped,
Yes.
but he calls and checks in on me every time, and then I get, text messages from him. Bring up the first text message of the peasant dish.
Okay.
This is a typical Ed O'Neill text.
Yes, which is there
There it is. So, what's that say?
Peasant dish: chicken, sausage, potatoes, and peppers.
Yeah, that's all I get. Just that picture. And so then I call him.
Yes.
Bring up the conversation.
Oh, you got that too?
Listen to this.
Okay, here we go.
Right. You actually call it that. It's so low it doesn't even move, and you can cook it, and I do, for like 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and potatoes, of course. And so I'm just going to let it sit and simmer and simmer and simmer and simmer. And it has amazing results, at the end of that time.
Are you cooking it now, or you're about to cook it?
I'm cooking it now. Let's see. I'm 3 hours in.
You know what I always do when I make stuff like that? I always make it so that it has 24 hours to sit, and then I eat it after. When I make chili, I always try to make chili not to eat then, but eat the next day.
I do the same thing. I never eat it on the same day. This won't be eaten today. This will be, I'll put this away at 9 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a
what-
typical Ed O'Neill conversation. Oh, it's still going. So the reason I recorded that is because Ty's birthday was coming up.
Yes.
And I thought, well, the best birthday present I could give Ty Burrell is to send him that audio clip of Ed talking about this peasant dish he was making. But if you listen to that again, rewind, he goes, oh, and potatoes. Potatoes, of course.
Yes, of course. He slipped in the of course.
Of course. And then, next picture, 3 days later, I get this.
Ossobuco.
He's making an ossobuco. That's Ed O'Neill in a nutshell right there.
Fantastic.
Just home, comfortable, making delicious dishes that he's not going to eat right now.
Yeah,
he's going to make it and eat it tomorrow. Right?
What?
He's the best. I know you have.
I love Ed O'Neill. Anything going on with Ed O'Neill is
we're
the
trying to
greatest.
get him to a game.
Okay.
He says he wants to come.
Well, one of the most famous clips recently. Who did he tell us to? Was he on Ellen's show when she was doing it?
Oh, Taylor.
Yeah, he had no idea who Taylor Swift was.
Yeah.
Right? Did you hear? Did
Well,
you
that
see
was that.
So
That doesn't surprise me.
I can't remember.
So getting the two of them together
Yes.
at a Chiefs game would be what we call epic.
Incredible. He
That would
loves
break the
Travis.
internet.
I told you before, he and Travis, the three of us have a text exchange. Travis, Ed O'Neill, and myself.
My God.
Yeah, it's an incredible piece of art. Like, it is incredible. But have I ever told you, I don't know if I've told you on this show before.
Yes.
But Ed, on a Monday after an award show, the best. I think I've done this bit. I can't remember. Eric, I saw, what's his name? He's a comedian. Jerry Seinfeld? No. African-American guy. Chris Rock? No. Eddie Murphy? Eddie Murphy. I saw Eddie Murphy. He was great. He was great. I hadn't seen him in years. He was with, what's her name? She does the voiceover stuff. I don't know, Ed. She's blonde. Cameron Diaz. I saw Eddie Murphy and Cameron Diaz together. They're great. They are great. They were in, what's the movie called? It's got the green fat guy.
Yeah.
Shrek. It's a great movie, Shrek. They offered me Shrek. I mean, that's...
See, Brett, you should now send him photographs completely out of the blue on how you're creating the Chiefs.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Like your draft choice, you just send him a picture, Worthy.
Well, you know what
That's
he'll
it.
do if I'm not giving up too much. He'll send me a clip of a player, a college clip.
Yeah.
And then I have to hear it from Adam Schefter that we signed the guy. I'm like, am I chopped liver?
That's right.
Like every breaking news, the Chiefs, I just send them like, I'm just a peasant on the street.
Yeah, you've told me, watch out for the Chiefs to draft this guy, and then they do.
My favorite this year is an unsigned free agent that we got, an undrafted free agent out of Marshall, a tackle.
Okay. Fantastic.
You love the lineman, right?
Well, I love the lineman. I went to I went to the rookie mini camp, and I was like, Veach, what's the deal? He looks the part. He's 6'9". He's 315 pounds. It's like, we'll see. Then the preseason, it's like, guess who made the 53? Undrafted free agent.
He's got a great eye.
He's got a good eye for that
Put
service.
him on the coaching staff.
Right? Yeah.
Well,
I want to be on some staff.
It's Randy
Special
Reed.
advisor.
It's Randy Reed.
When you guys were talking about the combine, I almost interjected and said, wouldn't know, never been invited.
We got to get him in the combine.
Please.
Just for the Elmo Steakhouse alone.
Dude, we'd love to. I'd love to have you in the combine.
Can you have me come on? I
I'll
want to
make
go
that happen.
so bad.
It's done. It's done. Thanks for coming on, Brett
Absolutely.
Veach. You're
Yeah,
a good
appreciate
man.
that.
Have a
Yeah.
great time tomorrow night. Really appreciate it, Eric.
Love
You're
you.
the
Welcome to
best.
Kansas City, guys. We hope you have a great
Yes.
time. You're going to a great steakhouse tonight. Have fun.
Rob Riggle started the show, Eric Stonestreet and Brett Veach, with an opinion that so few people think a three-peat is possible, that the Kansas City Chiefs, the two-time defending Kansas City Chiefs, are an underdog story this year.
He said that?
He said that. An underdog story.
Well, I love it. I mean, it's
What do you think of that?
It's championship mentality. It's the same Michael Jordan, Patrick Mahomes thing. Is like we're put upon, so let's find some motivation somewhere. I've seen that a lot of people think it's very possible.
I've already predicted
You
it.
predicted it, and
I said it last night. I didn't even get like an attaboy from you. Normally, if I go the other direction, you're texting me that I have a terrible take on TV.
Well,
I didn't even get an attaboy from you.
well, I was waiting for it today. Attaboy.
Thank you so much. So, Brett, are you an underdog story? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know if we're an underdog. I think there's a lot of teams that can certainly win, and I think. I mean, look, it's never been done before for a reason, but you do have to have a lot of things fall into place. And so, like one of the aspects of this season will be the guys, and for both teams, both Baltimore and Kansas City, the guys that start tomorrow on offense and defense, look at the roster week 17. I mean, there'll be like 3 or 4 new guys on each side. So a lot of it has to do with how the injuries stack up and how healthy teams can be. And I think, in the last few seasons, we did hit like a rocky patch in the middle of the season. But the one thing that both seasons, the one aspect they were both identical was we got hot and healthy at the right time of the year. And so that is ultimately what is the most important, not how you start and how you finish. And so, look, if we can, and we have a great training staff, shout out to Rick Burkholder and his crew.
Ricky B, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If we're able to get to the finish line and we're relatively healthy, I wouldn't bet against us. Yeah.
It's pretty wild, man.
What he said earlier,
Repeat.
which is we have Patrick and Coach. I mean, we start there, and so we get everyone's best every week. I know that, and everyone. It's any given Sunday. Every team you line up against are professional football players, but the difference is. We have Patrick and Coach, and until another team, maybe it's Eberflus and what's
the Bears,
Daniels.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Caleb Williams. Yeah.
Caleb Williams. Maybe it's them at some point, but right now, the top of the pyramid is Coach Reed and Patrick Mahomes. Yep.
Yeah,
Somebody's got to come after us.
Yeah, and when we talked to Clark Hunt before, and I mentioned about three-peat, would you be able to claim you're the greatest dynasty ever? He didn't really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Didn't want to talk about it. He basically, so of course I did my job and asked him again.
Yeah.
And he basically said, but talking about it the least is the best way to go about it. Then he
Yeah.
gave me a wink, which is ownership's way of saying,
Wink.
shut up.
Yeah.
Move on. Move on.
I've been at this for 22 years.
You work for me, sheep.
Good to see you. Thanks for being on, Brett.
Always.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.